let's assume that human activity was dramatically changing the climate, Gideon. Would the solution be found in organisations like the United Nations and the World Economic Forum anyway?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because if all those people who attend Davos every year flew commercial instead of flying their private jets, then their carbon footprint would be a lot lower. But in all seriousness, that's kind of the point. It is one rule for me and another rule for thee. I mean, think about it. When these people are off at their Davos convention every year and taking the chairlift up to some, well-appointed chalet in the Alps, do you think they're tucking into a bed of fried crickets or prime rib? I dare say it's the latter. So, again, people will feel very, very impoverished and very hurt by this drive towards decarbonisation, especially if it looks like the top end of town aren't even abiding by it and aren't even hurt by it themselves.
Well, people like Kevin Rudd call this the greatest challenge of our times, but I think it's one of the greatest ironies of our times that, in fact, life on Earth has never been better, Gideon. I mean, take crop yields and life expectancy and prosperity. All of these measures of human happiness, if you like, they've never been higher. You'd think that being a politician today would be easier than ever. Why is modern politics so pessimistic?
Well, one reason, I suppose, is largely because there are problems in the world that have been created by government over the last few decades. I mean, don't forget inflation is at soaring highs. We're about to go through probably the worst economic collapse in the history of the world. People's investments have been eroded by the tanking of the share market after the stimulus that was pumped up by governments through Corona has been withdrawn. But that all aside, in relation to what you're talking about, the environmental doom and gloom, I think it is because we're looking for a grand moral narrative. We are looking for a great moral challenge of our time, as Kevin Rudd put it, and chiefly that's because we've driven religion out of the public square. We have forcefully cut off the way in which so many people found meaning and purpose to the world, and we've replaced that with this neo-paganistic sort of religion where, and the similarities are all there, the codes of ethics, the great moral character, the doomsday and repentance scenario. The difference is that, of course, this is a very nihilistic religion, and it's, of course, sapping away our optimism and our hope for a better future.
Well, that leads very nicely onto my next question, which is to do with the Liberal Party. Douglas Murray had a great piece in the Telegraph of London on the weekend, lambasting the British Conservative Party for having almost nothing to show after a decade in power. He said, quote, "Whether it was government borrowing, tax rises, woke washing through everything or anything else, it is exceptionally hard to point to any area of public life which has not gone the way that the establishment expected," unquote. As the most pertinent example, he cited the prevalence of diversity over the concept of merit. Murray's piece seemed rather pertinent here in Australia too. Gideon, what would you say to the federal coalition has to show for its decade in power?
Extremely little, extremely little. And that's very sad. And that's not just something that was unique to the federal government. I mean, state governments too often from the coalition have left very little in terms of legacy, partly because Labor plays to win. Labor are already, moving huge parts of their agenda through. They actually use political capital to get their promises implemented, very ideological ones. The Liberal Party seems to just spend a few years faffing around in white cars and then wondering where it all went wrong when the government blows away like dandelion spores.